TYT Sports in New York, YouTube Space New York, and being in New York, Jason, awesome job at interviewing one of the most notorious players in New York. I was going to say
Barcelona.
Yeah, well, in Barcelona as well. I was going to say I was certain feet in the air, but I don't even know the altitude of a plane, so I'm not going to try and sound smart.
Let's go with 32,000 feet.
Yeah, I was going to say around 30,000.
Anyway,
anyway, I was in the air, and Jason brilliantly stepped in to talk to David Villa at an Adidas event for New York City FC, and got a few good questions with him about the MLS and the style of football. So that's going to be awesome. Make sure to check that out in a minute. But of course, thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring our clip. Squarespace.com/TYT. Free trial, 10% off your first purchase. Squarespace, build it beautiful. So the purpose of the interview with him was to get a sense about the style of play in the Major League. And before we get to that, and we hear from David Villa, I wanted to talk about a little bit before about what I think about the style of play. So I've had a bunch of interviews here with guys from the Cosmos, guys that are huge advocates for the game, and they're talking about relegation system, bringing in better players, all this stuff. And I've talked about my problem with the MLS, and at the very, very top is infrastructure, making younger kids play the game and make it a more dominant sport and one of the priority sports.
It's about the youth.
Yeah, youth. And number two, which will come when you start to grow the youth, is both competitiveness, which goes along with relegation and promotion, and style of play. The pace of this game here, I'm afraid to tell you guys, is nowhere near the pace that it should be for the game. Now, don't get me wrong, leagues can thrive with a slow-paced game. Serie A is a slower-paced game, but they have unbelievable defenders. They still have bring in star talent. They still have players in their prime like Paul Pogba. Of course, they need to start bringing in players that are in their prime and not reliant on guys for the retirement home method, which I mentioned to a few guys here and they agreed with. The pace of the game's too slow. I'm afraid the guys have at least sometimes 4 or 5 seconds on the ball. That is absolutely absurd. You put them in the Premier League, you're trying to say, unless you're playing with a team like Arsenal, who are so phenomenal at creating space, it's obvious it becomes a luxury that they get 4 or 5 seconds because they're so good at what they do to create their own space. And the MLS, it's not about creating space. Guys just pull wide. They get the ball and they've got 4 or 5 seconds. It's not true for every team, but as a whole, that is a problem, I think.
What would you suggest in terms of making it maybe more competitive throughout the leagues?
Well, I think the biggest issue for promotion and relegation is the single entity structure in MLS. It's basically a private club that you can only get into by writing a big check, and that check is getting bigger and bigger every year. And because it's a closed system, it's against their best interest to open it. You paid a lot of money to get into this exclusive club. Now you open it up. Who's coming in? What happens to me if I'm relegated? And the valuation of the MLS teams isn't on their turnover, how much revenue they're bringing in. It's about being in the exclusive club. That's where the valuation of their club is. It's not on revenue or revenue potential. So you have a fundamental problem there. Until that system is changed, then I don't ever see there being promotion and relegation. So what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is the NASL that we're in needs to get better. We need to grow. We need to have more teams. We need to have stronger owners. We need to be more competitive on the field. I think we've done a great job in 4 or 5 years in a lot of that, but there's still some distance to go. Once there's a conversation where I can't tell the difference between the two leagues, then maybe there's a change. But I think that's a long way off.
How do you lure players into US soccer more so in their prime? Right, because there is this theory that the MLS and NASL and leagues in the US act as somewhat as a retirement home. And that's me taking words from other people. I don't personally agree with it as much, but looking at guys like Beckham coming in towards the end of their career, Steven Gerrard now, Raul, do you think that's the case, and do you think that in order for US soccer to move forward, they have to bring in more players in their prime?
Well, definitely. Not only do we have to bring in players that are in their prime from whatever country they're from, but we also have to develop players from within with a proper academy, building from a very young age, and having a system that supports kids moving up through the academy into a reserve team, into the first team. Right now, that's fractured all over the country. Part of what we're trying to do is build a proper academy on top of rebuilding this club. So, yes, there is the risk of being viewed as a retirement league. For us, we brought in 2 legendary players in Raul and Marco Senna, but only for the right reasons. They were here to help us rebuild the club. They're here to work on and off the field, and both legendary people, great footballers, but off the field even more impressive. So you have to be smart. There are a lot of examples of players that have come to the United States where maybe their first division time in Europe has faded, and they've been an absolute disaster. So that there's a lot of risk in that. I think you have to be very smart, and you need to grow things together. As you're bringing in legendary players, if you're developing younger guys, and then maybe you can start bringing in legendary players a little earlier. Instead of 35, it's 32. And then you're keeping your younger guys a little longer, and then those two things come together, and arguably you could have a competitive club with any club in the world.
But as we mentioned, I got to sit down with David Villa over at New York City FC at an Adidas event in New York. Awesome, awesome stuff. Take a look.
TYT Sports, by the way, here with David Villa, European legend, played over at Barcelona, now coming over to play with the New York City Football Club. David, it's really an honor to meet you. Great to have some time to sit down with you. What would you say the biggest difference in terms of pace is between playing in Europe and playing here in the United States?
Es un honor conocerlo, un gusto de poder conversar un momento con usted. ¿Cuál diría usted que es la diferencia principal en términos del ritmo, la velocidad de juego entre haber jugado en Europa y jugar ahora acá en Nueva York?
No, la única diferencia que veo es el formato de la liga, ¿no? Obviamente en Europa se juega liga regular, aquí pues se incentiva mucho más el playoff, las eliminatorias al final, y es la única diferencia que veo.
The only difference I see is just the format of the league competition, that in Europe is just the regular league, and here they encourage the playoffs and the elimination of the teams at the end.
Great. In addition to that, you played over on FC Barcelona, one of the powerhouse clubs in La Liga, alongside some of the greats, including yourself, Lionel Messi. When you played over at Barcelona, what was the emphasis that you felt that you bring from that experience over to the United States? Are you going to try to take that style of play and bring it here, or is it a different style that you're going to bring on for New York City FC?
Entonces usted jugó en Barcelona, que es uno de los grandes poderes de la liga, junto a otros jugadores grandiosos como usted mismo y como Leo Messi y otros. ¿Qué cree usted que puede enfatizar de lo que trae de Barcelona aquí? Si va a tratar de practicar el mismo estilo de juego aquí o traer parte de esos aprendizajes aquí, o si es un estilo de juego diferente el que se va a practicar en New York City Football Club.
Yo soy jugador, el estilo de juego de New York lo marca el entrenador. Yo soy jugador y yo he jugado en muchísimos clubes con diferentes sistemas, y lo que me adapto es al sistema que quiera el entrenador.
Well, the style of play is something that the coach decides on, and I'm just a player for New York City Football Club. I've played for many different teams with different styles and systems, and really those are decisions that are up to the coach.
Great. And lastly, David, best pizzas in New York City, yes or no?
Y por último, ¿tiene alguna pizza favorita en Nueva York que haya comido?
No, todas las que he probado están muy buenas.
And all the ones that I've tasted are very good.
Great. Thank you so much.
So that was you talking with David Villa.
David Villa!
David Villa. All right, that's what some people do call him. But also, we talked as well, and that was with Erik Stovall, the COO over at New York Cosmos, who are not in the MLS, NASL. But I'm not talking just about the MLS. I did mention that there as one of the most prominent features of this problem, which is the pace of the game. But NASL and USL, which I've played in as well in some certain games, suffers the same problem. Still too slow of a pace. Now, it's not true for every team. I see teams in the Northwest have a lot more of a fast, aggressive approach to defending.
The Timbers and the Seattle Sounders and the Galaxy for the most part, but I really want to stick to the Northwest.
Yeah.
Portland Timbers and Seattle have a rabid fan base.
Yeah.
And if you're going to get a top-heavy league, like, not trying to compare it to La Liga because they got the best players in the world representing their teams, and it's fast and it's unbelievable to watch, you really do need to pick up that pace, because it's not that it puts you to sleep.
Yeah.
It's just you can tell the level of talent is different. It's like for me watching minor league baseball, which I know would put you to, if Major League Baseball put you to sleep, minor league would put anybody to sleep.
The reason I talk about it is because you guys are so used to the athleticism that comes along with games. Even in baseball, these guys are big and strong, and they need to throw that ball so fast and hit it hard. In American football, it's all about the hard hits, the speed, the agility.
The big play.
Yeah, the athleticism, same with the NBA.
But that's what could translate over to, if you pick up the pace of play in the MLS, you'll see big plays.
Of course.
Like, we want to see, I think you call it ping.
Pings.
You ping a ball into the from midfield.
Upper V.
I've never called it the upper V. It's the upper 9.
Or the upper 90.
Upper 90.
Yeah.
90-degree.
I scored a goal in college, and this is exactly what the commentator said. My dad quoted it word for word. He said, I smacked a ball from 30 yards, upper V, frozen rope.
I like the idea of a frozen rope.
What does that mean? I think it means because the ball hit the back of the net, it like froze.
No, it means it was on a rope. You see a rope stretched out? It was just ping right there. Jesus Christ. Oh, my God.
Whatever.
You're impossible to
congrats to that
impress.
commentator. Anyway, we're not saying, before people start defending all their teams, the Vancouver Whitecaps ran 295.5 kilometers, shutting everyone down. Like, I'm just judging it from an overall perspective. I am very biased.
Did the Vancouver Whitecaps run the actual marathon?
It might have. They might have been. They might be
from
very
like whatever
athletic.
was Athens to the city of Marathon.
What my statement is that it seems that when they get in, this could go further than this. It could go to temperature. Some places are really hot, but again, the La Liga is a slower pace, but they've got the ability to have some of the quality players. So what I'm saying is that they're talking about bringing in the relegation system, which is a great step, trying to do things like that, but it all comes down to money and ownership, so it's not easy, which Erik Stover talked about as well. But then they're talking about bringing in players in their prime. Players don't want to come in their prime because they're still in their prime in Europe, where it's a fast-paced league, so competitive they go to. When Steven Gerrard gets to the end of his career, he wants to be able to ping the ball 30 yards without some English guy from Stoke crunching his ankles.
I think the MLS just needs, I think there's actually two things that could fix it right now. We just beat to death the idea of the pace of play. Check. We get it. We know it, right? I think one thing that could absolutely change the fortune of the MLS is if somehow possible MLS needs its own LeBron James, its own Lionel Messi, its own Tom Brady, a superstar athlete that everywhere that team goes, it doesn't matter if you're the worst team in the league, you're going to go watch that other team play. I call it the Michael Jordan effect. You might call it the Zinedine Zidane effect.
It's like,
that you just wanted to go. It didn't matter who was playing that team, but you would go to watch it. Either you loved him or hated him.
Yeah.
My dad took me to see Michael Jordan play because I needed to see it. It was a spectacle.
Like Ronaldinho,
when they played the Knicks.
Ronaldinho played with Barcelona, and when he played
to see
against
him.
Real Madrid, he literally destroyed them inside out, and the Real Madrid fans stood and
We
applauded
need
him.
that Martin Odegaard kid. We need that 18-year-old
Someone
who's
that's going
going to be unbelievable.
Well, you had
and
someone
it should happen at some point.
There's some decisions that are made. I believe Clint Dempsey could have still played in the Premier League or even another competitive league in Europe for a while. He chose MLS, and of course now he chose to rip up the ref's notebook. Which
and now he's out for 6 games, or if it's shorter or longer, 2 years.
Yeah,
from the U.S. Open.
From the U.S. Open tournament. Yeah, that's what it must be stated. But someone like that, decisions like that need to be made more often. Giovinco's just come across as being considered one of the best players in MLS already, and that's what I'm talking about. Is if the standard of play and the players that came in, a guy like Giovinco, who has a good talent, but he never broke into Juventus' first team. He was used very sparingly. He's not an Italian phenomenal player that's used in the national team a lot. He's a good talent, small guy. If your talent here was so superior and to the point that you were drawn in all these players, then he wouldn't be considered one of the best players to play in MLS already. So I think that bringing in star players in their prime is a big step, but I think style play is something that needs to be taught. You need to be taught competitiveness from an early level. Yes, we want to convince all these kids that fair play and everything is a good step towards making everyone enjoy the game, but you need to be competitive. Winners and losers, that's how the game's played, I'm afraid. There's no point in just trying to promote that everyone should be playing the game because it's fun. It's competitive. I hate losing. It's why I love the game, and that's why kids need to be taught this as well as other things, and be taught to play hard, play competitive, shut the ball down, be physical. End of story.
Squarespace.
Wow.
Nailed it. Go over to squarespace.com/TYT for 10% off your first purchase. It also comes with a free trial. Me and Francis, or I should say Francis and I, my grammar is as bad as my website building ability. So if you want to make a professionally looking website, you can do that with Squarespace. We would only advocate for it because we truly, truly believe in it. It is a fantastic website. Francis is building his own. I'm not going to because I don't want to, but I'm going to make one that parodies him. Squarespace, build it beautiful. Leave all your comments in the section where?
Ow.
Above?
Below.
To the right?
Man, you've been working out that thumb?
No, but
leave your comments.
Watch out, Cavani. Coming for you. Leave all your comments in the comment section below. At Francis_Maxwell, at JasonRubin91.
We haven't plugged our Twitter in a while.
At TYT Sports. We're going to be, by the way, we're in YouTube Space New York, and they've been lovely and wonderful to us. Thank you so much for letting us use your space, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Give another peace sign.